people really need to be alive to the market that they're working in, whether it be a central bank or a certification company. Currently is a sad fact at the moment. The perimeter defenses are poor.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Dark Matters series of interviews. The Dark Matters series is a sequence of interviews with experts and personalities around the world with the aim to expose the dark side where accreditation, standards and accredited conformity assessment are not used. We hope by exposing the dark side that we help the bright side get brighter. So today we will discuss the phenomena of cyber attacks affecting laboratories, certification bodies, inspection bodies, but even accreditation bodies. And we would like to respond to the question, are we safe from these cyber attacks and how can we get ready for such attacks? To respond to that, we have with us today Mr. Andy Jenkinson. He's a top 30 cybersecurity expert worldwide as per the European Institute of Risk. Mr. Jenkinson is a senior and seasoned innovative executive for 30 years of experience. He was one of the first cybersecurity experts to discover a number of cyber attacks worldwide, like the SolarWinds domain's massive cyber attack in 2020. And he has also a number of publications. His first book called The Stuxnet to Sunburst, 20 Years of Digital Exploitation and Cyber Warfare. And also he just published his second book, which brings the experience of over 1,000 companies that were cyber attacks and were victims of cyber and ransom attacks. So the book is titled Ransom and Cybercrime, The Global Economic Shift. So for that, we welcome Mr. Andy, and we are very happy to have you with us today.
My pleasure to be here.
So today, as we have said in the introduction, we've been talking about the cybersecurity threat, which is rising around the world, and that our industry in testing, inspection, certification, the tech industry, we want to know what is really the landscape for these threats. So many of us, they think that it's just a rogue hacker that wants to harm one organization, but it looks like the reality is more complicated than that. It's like brokers, for hire hackers, like some organizations that are working for business, making this as a business for them to have cybersecurity attacks. Can you, Andy, with your knowledge in this field, give us what is the landscape really for our industry for conformity assessment infrastructure for this cybersecurity threats that we can face?
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Brahim. You're perfectly right about what you say. The threat landscape is huge, and in the certification market that you guys work within and accreditation, obviously a lot of onus and a lot of gravitas is put on these certificates in as much that people are looking to get some gravitas and some confirmation of an organization's capability and skills to have a default position that they can actually entrust them with their own business or whatever the certificate is renowned to. But the long and short of that is what we're looking at is digital access being achieved for whatever purpose, and whether that be for a ransomware attack, a cyber attack, or to gain certification for their companies that they can then sell or utilize for third parties and sell on. It's a little bit like digital passports. As we're moving towards digital passports, soon you will be able to buy on the dark web, if not already, a digital passport or a digital driving license or whatever it be. So people really need to be alive to the market that they're working in, whether it be a central bank or a certification company. They really need to make sure that their perimeter defense is solid and robust before they start looking at all of the other areas. And currently is a sad fact at the moment. The perimeter defenses are poor. Consequently, access is being achieved. And I can elaborate on that as much as you want.
We want to see how are we vulnerable for this? Are we more like a nice target for the hackers and for the cybersecurity threats because of the market value of conformity assessment and accreditation?
It's an interesting question because I've not studied your market per se. And as we just touched on, we're looking at a market revenue of around $270 billion in the next several years for certification per se across the entire globe. So in reality, I can tell you that although that's a rather large number, in some cases, one target may suffer that type of infiltration and loss and cost. Mm-hmm. So if the certification market was to be plundered by cyber attacks, it could make a significant dent in that market, but comparatively to other markets, it is a very small amount of pain and damage. Nonetheless, you cannot ignore what's going on, because I'm sure there's a lot of certification companies that would like to prosper and continue to thrive as opposed to struggle to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I think also that is something that we are feeling, because if someone can have an access to the certificates and to test reports, they can harm more than the certification bodies themselves and the accreditation bodies. They can go to the products, they can go to the stakeholders, and also to the users themselves. So we've seen, for example, during the pandemic, a surge in the field of health sector. So the health sectors with those fake certificates, and ever sometimes ransoms requested from the patient itself. So they hack a medical institute and the health institute, and they take the information, and then they threaten the client or the patient that they're going to divulgate the information. So that's also something that goes more and more. So did you have like an information about the...
Absolutely. It's we call it third-party risk and third-party cyber attacks. So if you look at let's say there's a small company A, that supplies company B, and they supply company C, and it goes up the food chain. Mm-hmm. And let's say it's our own National Health Service, for example, which is, turning over billions and billions of pounds in revenues funded by the government and the taxpayers. Yeah. Now, if a certification company was supplying certificates for that operation, whether it be nurses or doctor or whatever it be, if that was the weakest link, think of it like a chain. Yes. If that link was weak and access could be gained, in that navigating around in that network of that company A, they might find that lateral movement gives them some privileges and some access to go upstream and to attack where there's already this unwritten digital trust. Yes. Okay, so due diligence may not have been taken by the supplying company, the third party, but flowing upstream and taking with it the risk. Okay,
yeah, so is this what we call like the supply chain attack? So.
Absolutely, supply chain attack.
Yeah.
If you're aware, last November, this is a really important point, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, suffered a cyber attack on the 21st of November. And 100,000 emails sent by the FBI, but unknowingly sent by the FBI because they were sent by a cyber criminal, to 100,000 recipients with malicious code in the emails. Now, what had happened is it's still to be proven, but what we do know is the FBI server that was used for the mail exchange, i.e. emails coming and going, had been hijacked. And it had been hijacked because it was not secure. Okay? It should be secure, should always be secure.
Yeah.
I think it will come to pass that may be Russia, it may be China, it may be one of the nation states that we know, and it may have just been a threat. This is what we can take charge of. And people are still looking around at each other going, wow, that must be sophisticated. But it wasn't. It was negligent by the FBI that their servers were not secure to enable the attack. Now, if we look at a certification company, like we've just mentioned, if they've got a similar position, and one would expect the FBI to be secure, obviously, yes. But if the certification company, turning over several $1 million or several £1 million, whatever, aren't prioritizing the cybersecurity position they manage on a day-to-day basis, they are just a sitting duck. Maybe not for their own attack, but upstream.
Yes.
So if you and I become friends, for example, and I send you an email you automatically open it because you know me and I know you. But if there was a man in the middle attack that took my email, like I get every day emails that are phishing emails every day, and it said, Brahim, you need to click this link because it's such and such, you'd go, oh, it's from Andy. I trust that.
Yes.
It looks like mine. It sounds like mine. It looks like mine. You click it.
Exactly. But this is like, it looks like it's a costly process, but also a never-ending process because you need always to be up to date. These threats and these vulnerabilities, they change every day. It may be sometimes a negligence from the certification body or accreditation body or the lab themselves for their own security. But even though there's always risks. So maybe what we have to do is like to minimize that risk by getting the best possible security and infrastructure and servers and IT people in our organization, avoid a number of practices. But still, it's always those vulnerabilities will be checked and found. But what is your advice for us? So we are organizations that are technical. Most of our investment will be on the technical side for our work as assessors or as auditors on the lab equipment. Should we really give that much importance? Much investment in our budget?
Really good question. And I think the biggest challenge, Brahim, for most organizations is to, one, acknowledge the challenges they face. You know, and this fight or flight mentality, we've got to grab hold of that. The biggest challenge we see is education and lack of knowledge, okay, in whatever order you want them. And if we look at that perimeter, again, let's stay with this because we've got a military mindset on this. And if we think of a military organization, they will have barbed wire, electrified fencing, they'll have all of these things, and they'll have an entrance point that is manned and guarded with typically machine-gunned soldiers. What typically happens then, and this actually happened last March to the MOD in the UK, they suffered a cyber attack at the Academy for the Ministry of Defence. And they looked at it, and I've actually had discussions with the man that was in charge of the entire operation. And what they looked at was everything inside the perimeter, but didn't look at where the content was going from inside the perimeter to outside in the world. And this is known as domain name systems and content delivery networks. You'll be familiar with Cloudflare and Akamai and all of these other companies. So what they do is they take the information, which in computer sense, Brahim, this is really important for everyone to understand. Computers only talk in binary, ones and zeros. Okay, it's why domain name systems came about. Domain name systems take what you type in google.com to be an IP address, 4 digits. Okay, then the computers can search and give you back the information you want. There's a lack of education and knowledge about this. So even our academy for the Ministry of Defence suffered a cyber attack. So what did they do? After spending tens of millions of pounds looking at cybersecurity as a major issue, they went out and they renewed all of their internal servers, everything inside that perimeter. They renewed all the devices, all the PCs, laptops, phones, and everything. Said, now we're clean, we're good to go. The moment they pressed the button and plugged into the internet, it was all exposed again. Okay, this is the danger. So if we go back to our company A, let's stay with our company A, what they must do is look at their perimeter defenses first and foremost, because every other penny spent, dollar, dime, whatever currency you want, whatever is spent on other security defenses, if that perimeter is compromised, they've wasted every effort and dime they've spent. Okay, same as the Academy did. I've written about it in my 3rd book. I met with the Air Chief Marshal that was managing that, and he said, oh my God, we never thought about that. Now, most people don't. So you've got 2 perimeters, in my opinion. You've got where a company's website and their emails, which are linked, typically linked, they actually have that content. That website needs to be secure. When they then hand off that information to a domain name system or a content delivery network, they need to make sure it stays secure. Otherwise, this man in the middle attack, someone else can take it and adjust it and amend it. Let me give you an example of that, Brahim, because I've just written this book, as you're not aware. In Ukraine, 70 Ukraine government websites were attacked the second week of January because they were not secure. Both their own perimeter and their CDN's provider perimeter. So it was double jeopardy. There was no way they were going to come out unscathed, unfortunately. Now, if we look at what happened there, is those websites not only got defaced, but they were then able to take over the websites to do what they wanted. And at that time, they were putting out Russian propaganda, as I'm sure you're aware. Take this example. If they were living off the land, i.e. acting man in the middle attack, but nobody aware, if a commander turned around to his regiment on the front line and said, move your regiment 100 miles to the east, okay? And the guy, the colonel or whatever at the regiment, gets the email, doesn't notice it's got a 2-minute delay, but he receives the email in whatever form, and it says, move your regiment 100 miles to the west. They've just changed one word from east to west.
And that makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. So when they arrive 100 miles to the west, there's an attack waiting for them and kill them all.
An ambush or something,
Okay?
It seems like cyber attack. I think like cyber attack seems like to be an inevitable component of war, cold or hot war. So it looks like cyber attacks is not only something that is done by some IT geeks, but it's now part of the tools used by government organizations around the world, criminal organizations also in their activities. So it's something that we need to be aware of, and that our industry, conformity assessment and accreditation, seems to be primary target for those, because they give access and they give confidence that many of the users, they have that blind confidence in the work we do. So I think we have the responsibility to make our work secure and make sure to do that. So I think from what you say, I think that it's clear for our community and accreditation and conformity assessment that we take the necessary steps to be really able to mitigate the cybersecurity threats. Maybe we will not be able to cover every kind of cybersecurity, because some of them look really sophisticated, and there are some people behind it investing big money to get stronger and stronger on that. But at least we need to have our due diligence and have some kinds of steps that we put in place to make our work safe. So if we want to give that advice to conformity assessment and accreditation, so we have that cybersecurity investment in our budgets, but also I think that we need also to talk in the point of view of regulations and requirements around the world, because our community doesn't only manage their own websites, but they put also systems, certifications, and also relationship with different regulators around the world to regulate the cybersecurity minimum requirements, at least, so that we can work in a safe environment.
Yes. Brahim, I think the bit you touched on there is perfect. Trust.
Yes.
Okay, so when somebody goes along and says, we are certified to give you certification in XYZ, whether it be in financial services, whether it be in hospital healthcare, whatever it be, there is that element of trust that's automatically accepted. And in our world, we call it digital trust. And you cannot just accept you've got either. Okay, you have to verify and you have to make sure you do have due diligence. We all know that's a pain because we want to rely on each other and we take at face value, but you cannot do that anymore. You simply cannot, because, last year with the COVID situation, actually it was 2021, very early 2021. You won't be aware of this because it didn't hit mainstay press, but it actually did hit some press. The German government gave 100 million euros in 2 weeks to people who were cyber criminals pretending they were businesses looking for help in the COVID-19 pandemic. What had happened is they had stood up a website. The German government stood up a website and said, please register. We'll give you 25,000 euros. You need to give us your PII data, your personal identifiable information, and your business address, etc., etc., and we'll make a payment to you to support you during COVID-19. COVID-19 was a massive growth for cyber criminal activity. But what the cyber criminals did, they stood up an exact, we call it an evil twin website. Not evil twin sister, but evil twin. And what they did is they set up this evil twin website and it looked identical. They copied it word for word. So they just sat back and people were going on one website or the other website.
Yes.
And after a period of time, because there was no difference, they were both secure, they both looked secure. Yeah. One wasn't, one was, and they compiled their details in there. The one that was a nefarious website then took that data, which was bona fide information from people making a claim. Mm-hmm. They took that information and put it into the German website, the government website, for the support. Just changing the banking details.
Yes. Yeah.
Then after 3 or 4 weeks, the real claimants went back to the German government and said, I've reached out for help. You've not helped me. And they said, but we've already paid you. Mm-hmm. 100 million euros in 2 weeks.
And this is also very easy to happen for accreditation bodies, for example, to copy the website of accreditation body. You get your first quotation for accreditation, you pay the first invoice for document review, and then you have no response. And then you discover that website that looked the same, with the same logo, with the same information. It's very easy to copy website. And then they have that problem because some accreditation bodies, for example, they don't buy all the domains. They buy the .net, but they don't buy the .com or .org. And then it's very easy for the other organization to take your name, .net or .com.
Just one change. Yeah,
exactly. And then it looks the same and people can fall for that. So I think this is very important for us to have this information, and that thank you very much, Andy, for this very deep information and very exciting discussion with you. I look forward to read your book and also to have more discussions with you in the future. And for our community, I hope the message that we try to give to them can go there. So thank you very much, Andy, and see you in the next episodes, or maybe we can see you in real life after the COVID in our meetings.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Brahim. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.